In early 2020, the governor of Alabama organized a committee to study the gambling issue in Alabama. The committee met several times over the next few months and heard from a variety of different voices. ALCAP provided two speakers that addressed the committee: Les Bernal, National Director of Stop Predatory Gambling, and John Kent, a professor of business administration at the University of Illinois. Both men did an excellent job of explaining why gambling is bad for a state's economic health. But what they shared was countered over the next several meetings as members of the committee heard from a long parade of gambling proponents. The final recommendations that we expect this committee to make to the governor will likely serve as the foundation for a pro-gambling bill or series of bills that will be debated by the Alabama legislature during its 2021 regular session. The legislature may, if they find common ground, pass a constitutional amendment legalizing some form or forms of gambling that will have to be voted on by the citizens of Alabama. This could include not only a state-sponsored lottery, but also state-sanctioned casinos. If it is agreed that a compact should be signed with the Poarch Creek Indians, or PCI, PCI has already indicated that they will use that agreement as a basis for building at least 2 new casinos in the Birmingham and Huntsville areas. To prepare legislators and the people of Alabama for the public debate that will inevitably be a part of any and all gambling votes that may arise in the next year or two, I want to share a few insights. I'll be using a great deal of information from the Stop Predatory Gambling website in my comments, and I would encourage everyone to visit that website to find other information and resources that will help you understand the real issues concerning gambling. In this video, I want us to answer 3 questions that I often hear from legislators and others. Question number 1, is there a difference between gambling and gaming? Gambling proponents will always use the term gaming. Why? Because they're trying to disguise what they are really doing. Gaming is something children and young people do. They play games for fun and entertainment. They may win or lose the game, but they don't lose their money, their jobs, their homes, their families, or even their lives. Gambling, and specifically predatory gambling, on the other hand, involves the loss of all these things, especially if a person becomes addicted to the gambling activity. As defined by the National Stop Predatory Gambling Organization, predatory gambling is when state governments partner with powerful corporate gambling interests to use commercialized gambling to exploit and defraud citizens and their communities across the United States. Stop Predatory Gambling goes on to explain, predatory gambling is a form of consumer financial fraud like price gouging and false advertising, and it causes life-changing financial losses for tens of millions of citizens. Over the next 8 years, the American people are on course to lose more than $1 trillion of their personal wealth to government-sanctioned gambling. At least half of this personal wealth, $500 billion, will be lost to state lotteries. Predatory gambling is America's biggest, most neglected problem. The sole focus of state-sanctioned gambling has been to maximize profits, not protect the public interest. It's exempt from truth in advertising laws, giving gambling corporations wide latitude to market gambling, grossly exaggerate chances of winning, and aggressively lure citizens to lose their money. Let people gamble if they want, some may say, but we already have the freedom to gamble. Up to now, many Americans participate in office pools for the Super Bowl, NCAA March Madness brackets, make casual wagers on the golf course with their friends, or play a Friday night poker game. These informal events are examples of social gambling. There's no house skimming the large profit off the top, guaranteeing the participant will inevitably lose over the long term. No one is wagering continuously at rapid speeds of every 5 seconds or for hour after hour. Very few people feel an intense buzz or high from the experience, as in electronic gambling devices, also known as slot machines. There's no aggressive and deceptive marketing to get people to gamble more often with bigger sums of money. No one is lending or borrowing cash to participate and ends up losing their entire paycheck. It doesn't go on all day, every day of the week, year round, and it doesn't require the majority of Americans who rarely gamble to subsidize it with money of their own. Without the legal, administrative, regulatory, and promotional privileges provided by state governments, lotteries, regional casinos, and other commercialized gambling operators would not be spreading into mainstream American life as they are today. They would likely still exist only on the fringes of the society. Gambling, then, is dramatically different from gaming. So don't be fooled when you read or hear the term gaming. It is gambling. Question number 2. What about the fact that everybody is going out of state to gamble? First of all, not everybody is going out of state to gamble. Most of those who do only do so occasionally or when the advertised jackpot gets extremely large. If lottery ticket outlets are placed in local stores, people will gamble a great deal more often, perhaps daily, and they will throw away a whole lot more money on mostly worthless lottery tickets that will end up in the trash can. And by the way, most of those lottery ticket outlets will be located in the lower income communities, and the advertising will target the poorest citizens with the false promise that buying a lottery ticket will be their ticket out of poverty. As the Stop Predatory Gambling website explains, when a practice is fraudulent, its advocates will speak of it fraudulently. And one example of this reality is the "they're going out of state to gamble" narrative, a phony, recycled public relations strategy used by gambling interests in almost every state in America to breathe artificial life into efforts to establish lotteries. In a 2010 interview, financial investor and one of the wealthiest men in the world, Warren Buffett, said that this argument is illogical. He said, to paraphrase, "That's like you having a beautifully manicured lawn and your neighbor's Chihuahua occasionally comes over to do its business. To fix the problem, you go out and buy yourself a St. Bernard, which does a whole lot more damage to your lawn than the little Chihuahua that comes over on occasion." According to Stop Predatory Gambling, the truth is that big national lottery gambling operators like Scientific Games and International Gaming Technology, often running lotteries in neighboring states, fund lobbying campaigns to legalize lotteries in the states without them. Legalize the lottery and recoup the money going out of state, they deceitfully cry. They profit as the lottery vendor in those nearby states. They pit one state against another state over and over again in a continuing race to the bottom in which the only winners are the big gambling interests. A third question that often arises in the gambling debate is this: why not just let the people vote? I used to hear this argument from Democrat lawmakers, but now that the Alabama legislature is overwhelmingly Republican, I have in recent years started hearing the same argument from Republican lawmakers. Lawmakers in both parties will often say to me, "Well, I'm not for gambling, but I promised my constituents that I would allow them to vote." However, history shows what gambling proponents are really saying is, let us buy the vote. The Stop Predatory Gambling website states, "It is blatantly disingenuous for any gambling lobbyist or public official to say a fair debate leading to an informed, educated public will happen during a commercialized gambling referendum campaign, because it won't. If every legislator in a state was outspent 3-1 during his or her campaign, most would lose re-election regardless of their merit. Yet some legislators allow commercialized gambling operators to hijack the ballot process by outspending predatory gambling opponents by a margin of at least 250-1. How many sitting elected officials would win a campaign if they were outspent by at least 250-1? Here are just a few examples of the massive spending that has occurred in other states. In Colorado, gambling interests outspent opponents 1,734-1. In Massachusetts, citizens collected signatures to place a casino repeal referendum on the 2014 ballot. Gambling interests spent more than $15 million to defeat it. In the last 30 days, gambling interests, including MGM, ran more than 4,000 TV ads. Repeal advocates ran 0 because it was too costly to go on TV. In addition to the massive difference in ad spending, almost none of the TV ads run by gambling interests even mentioned the word casino. In Maryland, another MGM-led casino campaign spent more than $40 million to pass a statewide ballot question. In Ohio, gambling companies spent almost $50 million to pass a ballot question allowing them to open casinos in the state. What this means is, if a constitutional amendment legalizing a state-sponsored lottery or state-sanctioned casinos or a combination of the two goes to the people of Alabama for a vote, the playing field will not be level. Gambling bosses and pro-gambling forces will far outspend opponents, and their advertising will deceive people into believing that gambling is somehow good for the people of Alabama. And if you think, well, I don't gamble, but if someone wants to throw away their hard-earned money at a casino or on a lottery ticket, what business is that of mine? Let me remind you that you pay even if you don't play. When people are buying lottery tickets or gambling at casinos, they're not buying goods and services. Small businesses suffer and state sales tax revenues drop dramatically for local municipalities and counties, as well as the Alabama Education Trust Fund, which gets most of its revenue from state sales taxes. Also, when people are gambling away their money, they will turn to Medicaid to provide health care for themselves and their families. So the state legislators will have to increase taxes on everyone, even those who don't gamble, in order to cover the lost revenue to the states and local municipalities and counties. That's why many of the states with the highest taxes are states where there are state-sponsored lotteries and large numbers of casinos. And many of those states are on the verge of bankruptcy. Examples include New Jersey, Illinois, and California. If gambling was such a good source of revenue, those states should be the wealthiest in the nation. Let me end by suggesting what you can do to stop gambling bosses from taking over our great state. First, contact your Alabama House member and state senator and tell them that you want them to oppose all pro-gambling bills. You can find the name and contact information for your state legislators by visiting alcap.com. Research the gambling issue by visiting stoppredatorygambling.org. Number 3, talk to your friends, family, and church family, sharing some of the information you've learned through this video and your own research. And then finally, set an example for others. Do not gamble or buy even one lottery ticket. And I guess this is really the final thing. Pray that God will give legislators and citizens of Alabama the wisdom and the courage to oppose this evil vice.